Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted, episode 361, the first episode since the craziness of the holidays episode. I'm Kevin Carlson.
I'm Gavin Ashenden. It's the first episode after the French flood. It's the 13th of January and the feast of St. Hilary of Poitiers, who was a friend of Martin of Tours and a great Orthodox defender of the faith against the Arians.
That's right. Okay, Gavin and I are both on location, different locations. You have relocated to your place in Normandy, and you posted a picture right before you arrived of floodwaters surrounding, now everybody's calling it a castle, but your home there. What's the results?
Well, it's just an old watermill, Kevin. So I mean, it looks quite pretty, but it's but it sits on the edge of this river by a weir, and it really looked. Our neighbours in France said, you could be in real trouble, you ought to come over. As it was, I was already coming over. I had some writing to do and to heat the house. And when I got there, the electricity was off, it had fused, and the flood's waters were 3 inches from the top of the defences. So I got into bed, it was very cold, it was dark, it was damp, and I said, Lord, I have no idea how angels can keep water from flooding a house, but I'd be really glad if you could fix it. Wonderfully, the waters receded the next morning, and we've been fine.
You really have a trouble. We get rains here a lot too, and when the animals start pairing off 2 by 2, that's when I really start to sweat. You know what's going on? Oh boy! As you can tell by my background, I'm not back in Connecticut. I'm visiting mom and dad in Wisconsin, doing my son duties, which is a lot of fun. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be going to the Viking game up in Minneapolis for a playoff game. But I woke up today to 6 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's no way quickly to give you the Celsius for that, but it's really cold. On to the news. It's been like a week or two since you and I've recorded. Since then, the SEC has proposed a new bishop, and there's a revolt going on there, and I thought we could talk a little bit about that because here in America, as we've discussed, we choose our bishops differently. In the Episcopal Church, they have elections and stuff like that. In the ACNA, they have nominations, and the House of Bishops takes the nominations. You guys have panels you put together to choose bishops. They chose a bishop, and she's not very popular. What's the going on there now?
Well, they didn't choose the bishop, so the story is a complicated one. It's not made any easier by the public letters that both sides have put out, because it's quite clear that they either assume special knowledge or the argument lies in between the lines. So when you read the letter that a large number of the dissenting clergy wrote to the House of Bishops, who had imposed a woman bishop, Canon Anne Dyer, who has conducted gay weddings, the letter was a letter of protest, that's clear, but it looked like it was a letter protesting about the way it was done rather than what was done. But we also know they were upset about what was done because the diocese of Argyll and Orkney is probably the most conservative diocese in the Scottish Episcopal Church, and they had already had a synod.
That is a fair thing to say. You know they are.
We know that.
Yes.
And at their synod, where they asked the question about changing the marriage canons to include gay marriage, 2/3 of the clergy said no, and a very similar number of laity. So it was very clear that it was a real majority for holding the faith as it is. It was a great surprise to them then when they found themselves with a bishop who was firstly a woman that they neither expected nor particularly appreciated, and a woman who came with a mandate to do gay weddings. So the question, how did it arise? Because they got cross about how it happened. So the letter from the dissenting clergy, a large number of clergy proportionate to the diocese, said, we object to the way you've done this. And the letter came back from Mark Strange, the senior bishop. Well, you're really wrong because we've done this according exactly to the letter of the law, so you've got nothing to be upset about. And that leaves those of us who are just reading the letters a bit bemused. But what really happened was that there is something that is called a preparatory committee. So when the diocese in the Scottish Episcopal Church is looking for a bishop, the preparatory committee come together and they require between 3 and 6 names. And they then put that into the pot for a decision to be made between the candidates. For reasons that we don't know about because it's confidential, the preparatory committee failed to agree a short list of acceptable candidates. It is the fact that if they fail to agree, the House of Bishops can then take over. Now, the House of Bishops at this point can do one of 2 things, and this is where the difficulty lies. It can either say, well, we're sorry you failed to produce a short list of candidates. Here is our short list of candidates. Now, let the voting continue.
Sure.
Or it can, in monopoly terms, go straight to go and say, here's your bishop. Live with it.
Which they did.
Now, which they did. Now,
Yes.
The fact is, the reason why Mark Strange was so cross with this open letter was because the House of Bishops have an absolute right to do that. But the preparatory committee were cross because they said, well, first of all, you knew what we thought theologically. Mark Strange himself was sitting in and chairing the committee, so he knew perfectly well the theological tone of the diocese. And although you had a right to simply impose a bishop, we would have expected you, even if you only had one candidate, to give us the candidate to allow us to vote on it. Now, then, if it so happened that, let us say, the candidate was the woman they presented, Canon Anne Dyer, and the voting came and they voted against her, the process would have been fulfilled in all its ramifications. Mm-hmm. Now, the question is, why did the House of Bishops not do it the polite way? And the only answer for that is because they didn't want it to go wrong.
Well, they saw an opportunity to do the work of the Lord, who has changed his mind on so many things. It's amazing. But now I'm hearing rumors of the hashtag not my bishop. And perhaps some people are deciding that they're going to re-elect their own bishop for this diocese. Have you heard those rumors?
Well, I think I've heard a number of rumors, and we have to say these are just rumors. But what we do know is you have the very strange situation where I think there are only 4 bishops in the Scottish Episcopal Church's House of Bishops. There are 3 vacancies, I think. It may be there are 3 bishops with 4 vacancies, but it's one or the other. It's quite close. A small number of bishops have imposed upon the most conservative diocese the least acceptable candidate. And the question is, with what consequences?
Right.
Clearly, they hope that everyone will calm down and just accept it and go on giving money and time and love. But there's a very real possibility that it won't be accepted. If the woman is not accepted as their bishop, even though she quite clearly will legally become the ordinary, then what are their options? And I guess there are probably a number of people in a fairly distressed state of mind, wondering why this has been done to them and what their options can and might be. And at that point, I think it's probably not for us to speed the rumours along. We'll wait to hear what they decide.
I think that's a good point. Now I'm trying to catch up with 2 weeks of news here. I saw in the Times today an article about the AMIE, that you're growing, you're more powerful, that there's a little more fear in the Church of England, which is good, and that you guys plan to in the next 5 years plant some churches. What have you heard?
Yes, that's true. It's an interesting piece. Mm-hmm. It's a surprise because it's a really good piece for the AMIE.
There's no bad quotes in it from anybody. Oftentimes you read the Times, and I hate to say this, but they go for the strange quotes, and you're like, oh, that's my guy. Why did he say that? So
the AMIE is in fact part of a larger movement called the Unity Forum, which contains a series of other Anglican jurisdictions,
sure,
including the Free Church of England. And the Unity Forum is a danger to the Church of England. And frankly, AMIE should be as well. It's a mystery to some of us why Bishop Andy Lyons has gone out of his way to say we're not in competition with the Church of England. The only reason for having several Orthodox Anglican jurisdictions is conviction that the Church of England has gone badly wrong, and there'll be some people in it, priests and clergy, who don't want to go down with the ship. So AMI is a threat to the Church of England. It ought to be, and I think it will be. But so is the Unity Forum, essentially this conglomeration of Orthodox Anglican jurisdictions of which AMI is part. It's certainly true that AMI is the easiest to write about. It's completely independent. It's sponsored by GAFCON. Their church planting, which is always exciting, and Andy Lyons is very photogenic. Nice. So all those things make for a good story.
And he's Orthodox, and he's got a lot going for him.
He's got a lot going for him, indeed.
Okay, so we'll hope that we see some more information about that. I had put in a request right after Andy Lyons was consecrated to get an interview, and we were going back and forth. He took his trip, and I forgot to follow up. Expect a Facebook message from me, Andy, this week, so we can finally get that interview under and find out some of the new things going on with the AMIE. Now, this is going to be off Anglican a little bit because here in America, all the press deals with is Trump, but they're not also dealing with Prince Harry and his upcoming marriage. And I was reading an article about the duties of royalty, and I'm just kind of confused. And I thought I'd talk to you about that. What do the royals do?
It's more ontology than function.
Okay.
It's more that they be than that they do. Essentially, we require them to be. They in their being, they fill a political vacuum that otherwise a president would fill as head of state. And they be a very interesting tourist attraction because they embody English history. And we don't ask them to do very much. We ask them to open events. We like them to lay foundation stones.
That's what I see them doing. They go up, they cut ribbons, they
cut ribbons.
They cut ribbons and cut ribbons and cut ribbons. And I thought I need to ask you because, the monarchy in years past did much more politically and, more interested in conquering other countries and things like that. The monarchy today is still political, but as you say, they're more of a postage stamp on a country, and the country still has pride on them.
I think what the function of the monarchy is to take up a space in a neutral and benign way that if it wasn't filled by the monarchy would be filled by a president. And in a sense, there really isn't any obvious justification in a modern state for a present monarchy. But every time everyone says, well, let's invent a better plan, all the inventions are worse. And certainly the experience of states with presidents as head of state is seldom a very happy event. And the Queen in particular is such a nice person and a believing Christian and a woman of great integrity and charm, with some very interesting ancestors, and she lives in some very interesting houses, and she's created a very interesting dynasty. So she's fine. The really serious problem is going to be what happens when she dies, because even during her time, there have been a number of crises which have threatened to overwhelm the monarchy. The last one was the death of Princess Diana, when some very strange psychotherapeutic eruption of grief and rage began to be turned against the Queen. It was as if all the years of her service, everything she'd ever done right, suddenly counted for nothing. But the monarchy skillfully weathered that moment. However, when she dies, Charles does not have her charm. He's not so clearly Christian, and he still carries a lot of baggage from the Diana event. So everyone is, and not only that, but the Church of England and the monarchy are so intertwined that if one goes, the other may go too.
And
so
I think
really
that's the important.
The next few
point
years
here.
are going to be difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's the important point here. Is they're absolutely intertwined. To a certain extent, Britain is intertwined with the Church of England, but that there's a growing separation or confusion of who does what. But as far as the monarchy, the Queen being the protector of the church, she has served the church well. And I don't see anybody else in the line that's going to do what she did.
Well, I think it's the job of the Supreme Governor, not so much to do a good job as to avoid doing a bad job. Basically, the job of the Supreme Governor as a monarch of the church is not to say anything. You just hold the rein. Of course, the ludicrous thing is, as I'm sure everyone knows, that the title Defender of the Faith was given to Henry VIII as a good Catholic who was writing. Pope, yeah. He was telling Luther where to get off, and as he wrote good Catholic theology. And it's part of the ludicrousness of the English establishment that a Protestant queen has kept this Catholic badge of honor in this way. But putting that to one side, it's part of the beautiful eccentricity and paradox of the system. The situation we're in is not that stable, and it could change quickly. And both the monarchy and the Church of England are about to enter a period of some potential turbulence. So neither of them will want to rock the boat. The great difficulty we have is that when Charles's coronation comes, there'll be a number of voices, both secular and Islamic, that say, we want part of what we stand for to be incorporated into this. Yeah. There is no way you can take a thoroughly Christian event steeped in the Old Testament and the prophets and in history, and then modify it into a kind of relativistic multicultural event and imagine it will remain the same. So this is going to require the squaring of a circle. It'll be interesting to see how they manage it.
Well, if you follow the British press, and I do, sometimes I'm every day reading it, and sometimes I'm afar off. Prince Charles's religion this week is climate change. I don't know what it will be next week, but he has a different identity of what he thinks is important to Britain, to himself, and to the future of the world. And seldom do I hear anything relating to religion or Christianity, for that matter.
We know that he went through a very powerful pro-Islamic phase. Mm-hmm. We know too that he went through a Jungian phase. He was brought up he was very influenced by Lawrence of Van Post, who was a disciple of Jung. We know too he made this unfortunate remark, he wanted to be defender of all the faiths, which was illiterate at so many levels.
Yes.
One of the things he's done recently, he deserves a great deal of credit for, is to stand up for Coptic Christians in the Middle East who are being persecuted. I think there aren't many things he's done for the faith, but that's very important, and it was very well done. Now, whether it represents a growing into a more coherent Christianity, which he's owning, and away from his other attractions, or whether it's just another piece of the smorgasbord on a relativistic table of goodies, we won't know until later.
One final question. Every week we see pictures here in the American press of the royals going to church. Are they getting the gospel message at church, or are they getting the Church of England message at church?
They get both.
Okay.
There's been a program about called The Crown, a big docu-soap.
That's one of the reasons I'm asking. It's a little Netflix thing. You got to watch it.
You got to watch it. It's very good. My father was an acquaintance of Prince Philip. They served on the same ships in the war together. Okay. And this particular Netflix documentary is scurrilously unfair to Prince Philip, really horribly so. However, one of the things they do very well is they cover Billy Graham's visit to England, and they make a point of showing how deeply influenced by Billy Graham Queen Elizabeth was, and how they had a number of conversations. There's no question at all that she is not a Christian, that she doesn't know and love the gospel. We have to remember that her opportunities for saying anything personal are almost non-existent. The more she says something personal, the less she is the queen.
Well,
which is why, as a queen, all she needs to do is to keep her mouth shut and to be defender of the faith and to turn up at the right religious occasion at the right time, looking with the right face on.
But every December, I watch her Christmas video, And I'm like, this is the last Christian in Britain. This is the Queen. She knows it. I'm assuming in our household she preaches it. She believes it. But like you said, there's this separation from what she can do personally into what she can do publicly.
What I should have said is actually the one exception to that is indeed her Christmas message, where she fuses the two together. And I think it's in the last 10 years that she started to become personal about Jesus. She's very careful about the way she does it. It's done as a model of charity and gentleness, but it's also clear. And I think one of the things it does is it gives a lie to the whole multicultural myth that other religions get upset when Christians are Christians. Nobody ever complains about her devotion to Christ after the Christian message. But she can do it because she's earned the right to speak like this. I know I'm repeating myself, but the excitement, the trauma, the danger is going to be when she dies, and then Charles has to begin the whole thing all over again at 70 without enough friends, and with a lot of people wanting to change the DNA of the unwritten constitution in England and the UK.
Yeah. Gavin, I want to thank you for your time. I popped some surprise questions on you there. I think that's just the coffee talking, but I do wish you a wonderful weekend, and I'll catch you up. Hopefully I'll be back in Connecticut by next Friday, and we'll do our regular show.
Excellent. Perhaps we might talk about Tim Farron, who has recanted his recantation.
Yeah, we should do a second show today, maybe.
We could.
Oh, look, I'm Kevin Carlson.
I'm Gavin Ashenden. You've been enjoying or enduring episode 361 of Anglican Unscripted.